having another God before me.
No. Now, if you ask most of the people what is, you get this answer that he just gave me, and I'm not putting you down at all. They will quote the First Commandment, and they will say, well, anything that you put before God is an idol. And then, it's a real neat trick that's played in the minds of the people. They'll say, you know, like cars and boats and houses and carpets and drapes. Now, if this were true, we couldn't have any carpets, boats, houses, drapes, right? Now, these are not idols, per se. They must not, they cannot be, because we couldn't have any idols. Now, the second commandment is the one that's under attack. Remember the Catholic constitutions, they always remove the second commandment. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image of any likeness of anything that's in the earth or the sea. Isn't that what they always do in the Catholic religion, is remove that one? Well, they've also done it in the Protestant religion. And they've substituted and put this under the first commandment, and what do we end up with? An attack on what they call materialism. And the thesis of that is that if you give away everything you own, you'll be sacred. And it's communism. Now, the Lord prospers his people. By the same token, if you're not being prospered, that doesn't mean you're worldly. It has nothing to do with it. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the things you'll ever need will be added unto you. Now, if you have a tendency to worship the things of this world, that's going to be first in your life anyway. But I do not like the thrust of the preaching that has come under the so-called heading of materialism. And if you want the ancient and traditional definition of materialism, it is the idea, under church definition, of a literal kingdom. That's what materialism is defined as. It's Christ reigning in a literal kingdom. The rich young ruler, in the liberal churches, you always get this sermon on the rich young ruler giving up everything. And what did the apostle said right after that? Who then can be saved? And Christ said, with God, all things are possible. And then he turns around and he says, whatsoever things you give up for the kingdom of heaven's sake, whether it's people, things, you'll receive in this life 100-fold, and in the world to come, everlasting life. Now, they always leave that part out. But that's the part of the parable, or the illustration there with the rich young ruler. It's whatever you give up for the kingdom of heaven's sake, you get it back 100-fold in this life. Now, we have not claimed this legacy, because we've been also good trying to buy indulgences. You know, that's what most of the people, they go to church 3 times a week to buy indulgences, and they go out and to do all the things they want to do anyway. Okay. The second commandment is the condemnation. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. All right? In the framework of what we call the Old Testament was a literal system of idolatry. Temples, gods, so forth and so on. So you could go and see it, right? The Bible in Revelation 17:8, if you want to look at it, speaks of a beast that was and was not, and yet it is. Now, what a mystical phrase that is. It was, and it was not, and yet it is. Now, why does it put it that way? Well, it was, in that you could really see idolatry setting up. You could see it setting up there. And the Bible's all the way through. Did you know over 400 times it condemns idolatry in the Bible? And in the New Testament, too. Over 35 times in the New Testament condemns idolatry. In fact, he left the Gentiles with only two or three admonitions, right? Keep yourself from idols, things from blood, right? They always tell you this, you know. It doesn't have anything to do with the New Testament. But it does. Now, it was literally set up. Then it was not. Why was it not? Because Christ, when he came, destroyed it. Temples fell. This is a fact. Temples fell. Earthquakes came. Wars came. Devastations all over the entire world. Up to even the destruction of the temple at Jerusalem. It all fell. The stone smote the feet of the image and filled the world then with his kingdom. And all this stuff lies in ruins today. And our tax dollars are being spent in archaeological findings to dig those old gods out and bring them back. That's what it's all about. We got to go dig out Neptune. We got to go dig out Atlas and Venus and everybody you can name, because that's what all the money's for, is to go dig out the gods. Now, it was not because Christ destroyed it, and yet it is. It is in image and shadow. Now, we can see the shadow of these things in our time because it is a spiritual kingdom. It was preserved by what we call transducers. That is art, architecture, symbols. These are in the church known as icons. And festivals or holidays. Now, unless you can have some understanding of this business right here, you will not understand what I'm talking about. It's interesting to me that the majority of the teenagers, you can talk to them with symbols, immediately they understand in symbols, because from the first grade, they've been shown pictures of everything. So symbols are everything to this generation. But in the older generation, I find sometimes a hard thing for them to grasp the meaning of the symbols, because they were taught to read. You know, they read words. But the use of symbols is very important. Let me give you a definition. A symbol is something that stands for, represents, or denotes something else, not by exact resemblance, but by vague suggestion or some accidental or